Have you ever thought about the decisions that you've made in your life and just wondered if you'd made a different decision, what the outcome might have been? So today I'm going to talk about when you reach a fork in the road where you've got to make a decision on how you assess which decision you're going to make, which direction you're going to take, and what the alternatives would be if you took a different direction. What started me thinking about this topic was because here in New Zealand over the last few days, we've had an incident happen where about 4 years ago, a father took off with his 3 young children. And I think at that time they were about 8, 7 and 5, or 8, 6 and 5 or something like that. And through a family, I think it was a dispute over custody and one thing and another, he decided to take off into the bush with his kids, never to be seen again. Now, there was a wide search initially to try and find him and the children. And in the last 4 years, even though there's been odd sightings and activity reported of thefts from farms and lots of different stuff going on, the police have never been able to actually catch this guy. Now, you're probably thinking, a small country like New Zealand, how can someone disappear into the bush for 4 years? You've actually got to know the nature of what the countryside is like here. When you get to remote areas of bush, which are very dense, very hilly, and it's quite easy for someone who's got bushcraft skills to be able to disappear off-grid for a number of years. The extraordinary thing with this guy is that he took his 3 young kids with him. Now, there was 2 girls. The girl was the youngest and the oldest, and then the boy was in the middle. Anyway, on yesterday morning, there was some suspicious activity noted in a very small town where someone was trying to break into a farm goods store. The police were called. This is early in the morning. The police were called. It was considered, they were pretty sure that it was this guy and one of his kids that were involved here. Anyway, he had a 4-wheeler quad bike and he left the scene, followed some very remote back roads, and as he was heading to one particular intersection, the police just decided that they thought that he was heading that way. So they put road spikes on the road. Ultimately, he went across the road spikes in his 4-wheeler and the 4-wheeler stopped. Now, when the police approached, he fired a shot because he did have guns on him, which he'd obtained illegally. And he fired at one of the policemen who was injured in the head. And on arrival on the scene of another policeman, he was shot and unalived. Now, the child that was with him was the oldest girl. She helped the police to locate the other missing children. And they were found round about 4:30, 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Now, the whole incident sort of unfolded during the day. People were concerned about the other children, wondering where they were, wondering if Dad was going to come back and the sister was going to come back. And as time went on, of course, they didn't come back, and they gave themselves up to the police once they found where they'd sort of built a bivouac in the bush, and they were taken into police custody or care. And there's been a lot of reaction to the shooting. The police didn't want it to end this way, but it did. The children have now been recovered. They're in care, being examined for, that they're safe and everything. And it got me thinking about 4 years ago when this guy decided, he made a decision to take these children and go into the bush and hide out for 4 years. Now, it's a very remote area where these people lived, and where the mum lives and the father's parents live, a rural farming community. And there's a lot of talk about whether or not he was getting help while he was on the run. People that knew him in this community were very sad to see this happen, but they knew that he shouldn't have done what he did. And ultimately, there's an investigation going on. And I just keep thinking, had he made a different decision 4 years ago, how would things have turned out? Now, it makes me think then about all the decisions that we make as we grow up. Now, as a kid, we're faced with decisions on whether or not to be a good kid or a bad kid. Unconsciously, we make these decisions. We're probably not sort of old enough to understand repercussions of making wrong decisions. And then you also have a decision as you get a bit older as to how you approach your schooling. Are you going to embrace education, or are you going to turn your back on it and just be a little shit of a kid and be disruptive? Then when you go into the workforce, or when you leave school, do you decide that you want to go on and do further education, like college, university, or are you wanting to go out into the workforce? And then once you do get into the workforce, what sort of an employee are you going to be? Are you going to be a good employee, or are you going to be someone that has to hop from job to job because you can't really hold down a job? Now, all of these events that happen in your life are as a result of decisions that you make. And whether it be when you were young and you're faced with peer pressure, whether you decide that you want to follow societal trends of what's going on, there's lots of activities going on. Do you want to be a trendsetter, or do you want to be a trend follower? You have a decision on that. You also have a decision on whether or not you listen to propaganda. Do you really want to take the time to analyse the facts that you're told by governments, politicians, by the news media? Do you just listen and take it as face value and think somebody said it, so it must be right? Or do you make that decision to actually research and see how much truth there is in what you're listening to? I mean, propaganda is as old as time. Propaganda is one of the things that's used in warfare by countries to make out that their side of the war is the good side and their enemies are the bad side. So there's always propaganda, and it's your decision whether or not you listen to that. And then also we've got advertising pressure. In everyday life, we go through listening to and being bombarded by advertising. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's a good product or a bad product. Advertising will always be the same. Advertising will have the purpose of getting the consumer to think that it's a good product, that it's something that they need and that they must buy, and to buy it as soon as possible. And usually they'll put a timeline, or, sales on now, ends at the end of the week, or something like this. And it's your decision whether or not you decide to listen to that advertising, or take a step back and just start to analyse just what is actually happening. What are you being told? What is the research on this product? What have other people said about this product, or this program, or this whatever it is that the advertisers are trying to sell you? Have you taken time to analyse and just see how much truth there is in it. Once you've established that, do you really need it? Or are you being just convinced by somebody that you need it? Or do you actually make a decision yourself and say, I don't need this, I'm going to ignore it? Or even before that, make the decision not even to look at the advertising. We're bombarded by advertising everywhere. Newspapers, shop fronts, TV, YouTube, everywhere there is advertising. And it is your choice whether or not you absorb that, or whether you listen to it, or whether you watch it. So blaming advertisers for things is really counterproductive. Who you should be blaming is your own self, because you were either sucked in enough to watch it and listen to it and buy into it, or you should have actually just turned away and ignored it. Everybody is in a place in society at any given time where your life is based on your own decisions. Are you going to be one of those people that is swept along the river, going with the flow, or are you the person that looks out onto the bank and sees opportunities and decides, I'm going to swim across because I want to make the most of that opportunity? I would say most people are just happy just to go along with the flow and ultimately end up in a place where they really don't want to be. Whether it be they don't have the things in life, or they haven't achieved the things that they wanted to. They've ended up in places where they get into all sorts of activities where they find themselves in trouble. They've made decisions. They've made their own decisions. And that's what's got them where they are. Now, I know people go through trauma through life. Kids go through trauma as they grow up, as they go through school, as they go out into the bad world, into society. But it doesn't mean to say that you don't have the power over your own decision making. There's been so many people that have come from bad beginnings, have ended up in really good, strong positions where they're very happy. They've got everything that they want in life, or pretty well everything they want in life, because they made that decision very early on in their life that they weren't going to be swept along with the current like everybody else. So I just really wanted to make this point. It's like, I probably want to say things about like with someone who goes on to drugs. I've never taken drugs, so I don't know. So I'm probably talking out of school here. But I know I hear people that say, oh, I was abused as a child, or I was this, or I was that, and then I turned to drugs, or my family was on drugs and I just went on to drugs. You still have that intelligence. The human brain is an intelligent thing. It is your decision whether or not you go along with the flow. I'm probably going to get a lot of criticism here from people saying it's not that easy. It's not that easy to make decisions against the flow. But how many people even try? I see videos of like solo mums that are solo, they're on benefits, and they're still producing children. Obviously, not by permanent partners, but by the odd, fly-by-nighter. Who knows? It is their decision to do that. It is their decision to get themselves into a position where they still keep popping out children. And if you can't afford to look after those kids yourself, why are you making a decision just to carry on and keep being a drain on society? Is it because it's easy to go with the flow and just say, well, others are doing it, I'll keep doing it too? I can think of a multitude of occurrences where People are just happy to go with the flow because it's easy and they don't want to make a decision. Now, when you start having to make decisions about things, I've made some very hard decisions in my life. And sometimes it's not very easy. And some people hate making decisions about anything. When I've got a decision to make, I think through, just on the surface, if I'm not able to make a decision, taking one action or another action, what I'll usually do is get a piece of paper and I'll write down all the pros of making one decision and all the cons of not making that decision. And then based on that information, I will form an opinion on whether or not I believe that the decision that I'm going to make is going to be a good one. During that time of doing that analysis, there'll be things that'll come into your mind that you didn't even think of. Circumstances that you think, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think that would happen. So while your brain is physically going through this process of sorting the good from the bad, you'll often come up with other ideas. This is the way that I do it. And I could think of a million decisions that I've made over the years where I've had to do this. At one stage, making a decision whether to come out of retirement and to go back and apply for a job, which I knew I would probably get because of circumstances with a disaster that had occurred. I had to sit there and think, do I really want to come out of retirement and do this job? So I sat there and wrote down a list of all the pros, all the things that I would achieve if I did make the decision to go back into the workforce. And then I thought of all the bad things. What am I going to lose? What are the bad sides of going back into the workforce? And when you're retired, the first thing you're going to give up is your time. Do I want to give up my time and my chance to have leisure? The pros, of course, is you're going to have extra income coming in. And I was in a position where I sat there and thought, oh, I don't know if I want to do it or not. So instead of just thinking about it, I went through that process of analysing all the good side, all the good things that I would achieve or that would be a benefit, and all the bad things that I thought, nah, based on those things, I don't really think it's worth it. So this is how I've been a decision maker pretty well all my life, and I learnt this very early on. I can't even remember who it was that told me. It might have been one of the teachers I had in school. If you can't make a decision, sit down and think of the pros and cons of making that decision or not making that decision. And this is what I wish the guy I was talking about at the beginning of the video, with the children, whether he'd made that decision. Did he, when he made that decision to take those kids into the bush, did he think what would be the ultimate outcome of that? He had 2 young girls. The oldest one is now 12, going through menstrual cycles and all that sort of stuff. Living rough out in the bush and not having any income. And the only way you could survive was to break into shops and people's homes. It's no way for a young girl to have to deal with all of that sort of stuff. Did he stop and think what the pros and cons would be? The pros would be for him is that he would get to have his kids with him. The cons would be that the kids would miss out on formal education. I'm pretty sure they're very, very bush savvy now, but they've missed out on 4 years of formal education. They've missed out on other family members. And he had to have thought, what was going to be the end result here? Is this going to last forever? Or is it going to come to a sticky end? And I just wish he had thought more at the start before he made that decision. And that's why I encourage anybody, when you've got a decision to be made, remember it is your decision. It's not anyone else's. You can ask for somebody else's opinion, but ultimately it is your decision. You have to decide what action is going to be the best and act upon it. I could probably keep talking on this subject for a long time, but of course I don't really want to make this video too long. It's just something that gets to me about people being unable or unwilling to make decisions. And just, I mean, gut feeling is a wonderful thing too, but sometimes you need to actually analyse things a wee bit more. So that's my little talk for the day. I don't know if it's made any sense at all. And I am caught here in the car. I came down to the park. I got my dog out. He's asleep in the back seat. I got my dog out. Just as I did that, the skies opened up. So rather than go home, I thought I would just do this video in the car. Oh dear. I made the decision. Am I going to go home or am I going to do the video in the car? What's the pros and cons of it? I'm already here. The cons are, means I've got to go home. Pros are, I'm here. Let's do it while I'm here. So that was my decision that I made. So anyway, that's my little talk for the day. If you've got any comments at all, I would love to hear them. Thank you for for visiting my video today. My name is June, and welcome, and thank you for being here. So everybody, please take care, stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.